I now rise for the reason I'm here. I chair the full committee of the Appropriations Committee. My very able and esteemed colleague, Senator Shelby, is the vice chairman. We come to the floor today to talk about our legislation, which is an amendment to the House CR to fund the federal government for the rest of the fiscal year. It continues the bipartisan tradition of the Appropriations Committee working closely with both sides of the aisle. And I want to thank Senator Shelby for his excellent cooperation and his wise counsel in doing this and actually co-sponsoring this. Our leadership, Senators Reid and McConnell, have really been critical to bringing this, allowing us to come to the floor, to be debated openly, to have appropriate amendments and voted on by the full Senate. In today's toxic environment in Washington, I must say our conversations have been characterized by civility, collegiality, and absolute candor. What can we do? What we can't do. Not what we would like to do, but what we must do to keep the government doors open. I also want to comment on the excellent tone and conversation and that we've had with the House, specifically our House counterparts, Congressman Hal Rogers, the chairman over in the House Appropriations, and Congresswoman Nita Lowey. We've talked with each other, we've worked together, and if we continue to do that in they're not intervening dynamics, we can get this bill done. Now, Mr. Chairman, before I go into our bill to offer the content, I want everybody to understand there are three things at play in Washington this week. We use arcane language so nobody knows what's going on. So there's the sequester, there's the continuing resolution, and there's the budget committee. So everybody's getting it confused, everybody's getting it commingled, and all of it is getting press, and the American people don't understand that there are three separate solutions to three separate problems. Let me go to the Budget Committee, which will be on the floor next week, in which Senator Murray is assiduously and persistently working on her bill. That is for Fiscal 14. That is the framework on how we're going to approach our overall budget. What are we going to spend? What revenues we're going to have to raise, if any, and also a review of mandatory spending. That's going on over there. That's for Fiscal 14. What the Mikulski-Shelby continuing resolution is, which is really the appropriations bill, not a personality bill, that this will fund the government through 2013. The American people should say, didn't you do that in October? Isn't our fiscal New Year's Eve, October 1st? Well, not really, because what happened is we were going into the heat and passion and prickliness of an election year. It was the wise head to extend it where cooler heads would prevail into March. Well, here we are, we're the cooler heads, and we're ready to prevail. What we have here is the legislation, and on March 27th, and everybody needs to understand this, on March 27th, that continuing resolution expires. If we do not pass our bill and then have an agreement between the House and the Senate that is signed by the President, we could face a government showdown. Now, there is no will on either side of this institution that wants to do that. We are absolutely committed to no shutdown, no showdown, no lockdown, no slam down. We want to do the job. And that's why we've been working very carefully to do that. What we will offer here today is funding through the fiscal year, which will take us to October 1st, that meets the mandatory cap assigned to us by the Budget Committee of $1.4 trillion. That's a lot of money, but it's a big government with big responsibility. It includes everything from defense, defending us over there, to the border control, defending us here, to meeting compelling human need and making investments in science and technology while ensuring that we do what we need to do. Our legislation is quite simple and straightforward. It includes 5 appropriations bills. 2 are already in it from the House: defense, military construction, and veterans. It will also include agriculture, homeland security, and a subcommittee that Senator Shelby and I are chair and vice chair of that funds the entire Justice Department. That means FBI, federal law enforcement, science, and commerce. So we have Ag, CJS, Homeland Security, and Defense. Defense and military construction are identical to the House. Agriculture, CJS, and Homeland Security are consistent with bipartisan and bicameral agreements negotiated last fall. Remember, we're reaching across the aisle, we're reaching across the dome. That's how we're trying to do it. However, there are 7 remaining bills in the continuing resolution, and they are energy and water. That's money for like Corps of Engineers, interior and environment, financial services, transportation, labor, HHS, state foreign ops, and a legislation branch. That means they're provided current funding levels and policies with some very limited changes to fix pressing problems. These are called anomalies. The Senate version totals, as I said, $1,043,000,000, equal to the House CR. So the top line is the same. It's how we achieve national goals. It is equal to the House continuing resolution, and it is the same as required by the Budget Control Act. We are in absolute compliance with the Budget Control Act. Now, sequester mandates another $86 billion in cuts. That comes over what we do, and that solution is to be negotiated by the president and the leadership with the concurrence of both bodies. That's part of the charm offensive that's going on. Now, sequester needs a balanced solution, and we will be listening and awaiting their ideas. But right now, what we are looking for is our bills that include bipartisan amendments, minimize the problems of operating, and return to a regular order for fiscal 14. The amendment that we offer is much better than an extension of the current continuing resolution. That means, why don't you just take a date, and just change 2012 to 2013? We do that because our bill makes reforms. We actually get more value for the dollar. If we just extended it, we would sometimes be spending money on unneeded programs, one of which would be in our bill, CJS, $500 million for a space shuttle that doesn't exist. We want to change that and put it where it belongs, in proper defending the nation and investing in science and technology. So a date change in the continuing resolution is just not workable. The Senate amendment improves the House CR by adding those 3 domestic bills, and as I said, includes a number of changes. I could go through each and every one of those changes, like in agriculture, and what I want to do is just explain the process now. I do want to explain the content of my bill. However, what I'd like to do is take a minute now and yield to Senator Shelby for his opening statement, and then I'd like to be able to come back and explain the details of actual funding. But I must say, we have, again, what I appreciated was not only the civility and the collegiality, but the candor. We had to look at not what we would like to do, and not even what we should do, but what we must do to keep, not only when we say government operating, it's to achieve the national goals that America wants. Our national security, both those who wear the uniform of the United States military, but others who defend the nation, like border control, federal law enforcement, local law enforcement at the local level, food safety and drug safety inspectors, to make sure we meet compelling human need in the fields of like education, biomedical research. This is what we're trying to do. Weather satellites that predict future natural disasters. So again, we don't have a bill here that's what we would like to do, but we have a bill that what we must do. And if we all work together, we ask those who have amendments to be working with our leadership, we believe that we can move this bill by the middle of this week, that by the week's end, the certainty of government funding will be established, and we can show that we could govern. Mr. President, I yield the floor so that my Vice Chairman can say what he wishes to do to add to the debate. Mr. President.
Senator from Maryland.
As you can see, our tone, and we need everybody's cooperation to really, if they have amendments, to bring them to us and also to the leadership that's helping us negotiate which ones will come up. And I think we can get this bill done this week, and we intend to. But I'd like to say why getting it done is worthwhile. I want to speak about agriculture. I'd like to speak about some of the content that we have and do it in alphabetical order because it's easier for folks to follow. In agriculture, our amendment really makes sure that we fund the Food Safety Modernization Act, which is not included in the House bill. What this does is the first major reform of food safety laws in 70 years, and it's much needed. CDC says 48 million Americans suffer from foodborne illness each year. And as you know, this morning before I came to the floor, I attended a hearing on the Select Committee on Intelligence, Mr. President, that I'm a member of. General James Clapper, the head of the Director of National Intelligence, along with key people from the military, civilian agencies like FBI Director Mueller, gave us a 30-page report on threats to the United States. One of the things they talked about was the safety of our food supply. We need to make sure we have inspectors on the ground for what might occur through bacteria or what might also be induced. So we need to know that food safety is a big issue. This amendment is also better in improving clean water to rural communities and provides 165 rural communities with clean water and waste disposal, creating construction jobs today and improving community health. I'm very well versed in that because I represent over 2,000, along with Senator Cardin, 2,000 miles of the Chesapeake Bay. We have older communities. We have issues related to wastewater treatment that are not only polluting the bay, but have very difficult to repair because of the very nature of our population. Wonderful, patriotic people who don't have a lot of cash to pay a lot of taxes for wastewater. But in helping them, we improve public health. We save the Chesapeake Bay with all of its seafood industry. That's just me, but we could go everywhere. On commerce, justice, science, now that's a subcommittee I chair. Boy, do I like it. Why do I like it? Because it goes to everything we're talking about jobs, about justice, about jobs today and jobs tomorrow. When we look at our Department of Commerce, which should be the point place for American business, really promoting private sector initiatives, and most of all, promoting exports. Mr. Chairman, not sending jobs overseas, but sending products and services. That's where the trade negotiation goes. This is where we are part of our economic vitality. This is where we have bipartisan agreement. Let's engage in free and open and fair trade. That negotiation staff and so on is funded through our subcommittee. And also, though, when we send jobs over, we don't want to send jobs overseas. We also want to protect our borders. That's going to be in Homeland Security. But in the Justice Department, This is where, or in our justice funding, we fund federal law enforcement and provide funds to local communities on a competitive basis to put cops on the beat and to give them the appropriate things they need to protect themselves. Let's look at the burn, okay, so let's look at the burn grants, the main federal tool that helps state and local law enforcement. We provide more money. That means more money for body armor, more money for them to learn the latest tips and so on in stopping the gang threat. It also provides Cops on the Beat grant. Both of those are modest increases over the House funding. When I say modest, you know what I'm talking about? For all the local law enforcement does, we're going to provide $15 million. That's not a lot of money by Washington's terms, but to the local police departments, it'll be a help. Commerce Justice also supports innovation. It is in this subcommittee that we fund the National Science Foundation. $220 million more than the House means that we will be able to provide more help to 7,000 scientists and teachers making new discoveries for new products that will lead to new companies and new jobs. This is what we do. We're better than the House also in Homeland Security. This amendment does more to protect the nation from cyber warfare. Cyber warfare is one of the greatest threats facing America. Again, in this 30-page report that we've got on threats, the first 5 pages, the first 5 pages were devoted to just all of the cyber problems. What kind of cyber problems? Cyber attacks, cyber espionage, and the growing nexus between organized crime and nation states. Presenting hacking, stealing our state secrets, our trade secrets, and also acting as enablers, and like the human trafficking in women, weapons of mass destruction, where you sell women and children as a commodity across the borders of the world through organized crime and corrupt government officials. You'll also sell other kinds of things, including weapons of mass destruction. So this is where we need to fund Homeland Security, the Department of Defense, the FBI, our contribution to Interpol. All of that is in the bill, and we do better. Not a lot better because we are frugal. Again, not what we would like to do, but what we must do. Also, under Homeland Security, we make sure we look out to those things that put people in harm's way. In my own state and through others, there's the whole issue of fires. Now, most fire departments in big cities are run by professionals, but in most rural communities, they're run by the great volunteer fire departments. We have a fire grant program that I helped start that trains and equips local firefighters. What we do here is that we provide more money, $33 million above the House, to help provide those grants. And we also provide additional funds to help state and local fire departments. In the area of compelling human need, I want to talk about the Subcommittee on Education, Labor, and Human Services. In this committee, what we do, this is the subcommittee that funds compelling human need. And what do we do here? We look out for child care development block grant help. We support care for 9,000 more children. And we also make sure we adequately fund Head Start and provide modest sums in there. And in addition to that, we also provide more money to the National Institutes of Health, $71 billion. Now put that in the context that they're going to take $1.5 billion hit in sequester. Mr. President, I know you represent a great state. You represent Hawaii. Who wouldn't love Hawaii? But I wish you'd look at Maryland. You'd be crazy about Maryland. Not only do we have the wonderful Chesapeake Bay, a Super Bowl championship, but we have other Super Bowl winners. They're called the National Institutes of Health. the National Security Agency, the National Weather Agency. But just the other day when I was over at NIH, they told me and told America through their communications that NIH's work has resulted, working with clinicians and the private life science sector, we have reduced cancer rates in the United States of America by 15%. 15% in breast cancer, prostate cancer, lung cancer. And it's all of those wonderful researchers going on at the Bethesda campus and in academic centers of excellence all over America. But instead of pinning medals on those people and encouraging young people to come into science, we could end up giving them a pink slip. What are we doing? I want to not only lower cancer rates, but I want to improve and raise the discovery rate. This is what we do in the CR. We are working with on a bipartisan basis. This is helping American people and giving us products that are approved by FDA that we can sell and ship around the world, to particularly to countries that could never do it. So I'm all about jobs, jobs today and jobs tomorrow. That's why what we do in transportation, housing, and urban development is also a big step forward. In addition to looking out for the homeless, we provide also an additional amount of money for highway and road safety programs, where people actually working with funds going to governors at the local level, not some shovel-ready gimmick, but really identified projects in the pipeline. We can generate jobs in construction. We can improve public safety by improved smart highways. And literally, we can help get America rolling again. We have a fragile economy. So I could go on about this, Bill, but what I want to say is this is a general outline, and I will talk more about it. I feel very passionately about it because we have squeezed every nickel. We've looked at it very assiduously to make sure we are well below, that we are right within our mandated spending cap, but they assessed our national priorities: national security, compelling human needs, how we can help create jobs, look out for the middle class, and make those investments that improve the lives of the American people and generate jobs tomorrow. I think we have a very good bill. I ask everyone's cooperation to get it passed. Mr. President, I yield the floor.